Hi guys, today I'm gonna be talking with you about one of my favorite book series ever called The Sword of Truth by Terry Goodkind. Here, those are really heavy, so I'm gonna put them down. And his latest series about Richard and Kaelin, which includes so far 3 books, that's called The Omen Machine, The Third Kingdom, and The Severed Souls, which I only finished this week, and so I'm really eager to talk about that, so let's get into it. Okay, so let's get started with the first book of the cycle, The First Wizard's Rule, which is by Terry Goodkind, and it was written in the 90s. And this is the book that we're gonna be talking about. So it's set in a fantasy land called, well, it doesn't have one name, but it has many territories. Every good book has a map, we have to admit that fact. And a lot of the events in the next books are gonna happen in areas that aren't even mentioned here because the books are really vast, and we're just gonna get into it. Okay, so this book is about Richard Cypher. He's the main hero of the series, and he's a young guy who is living in an area that's called the Heartland, and actually he's a wood guide, he's a forest guide. He walks through the forest and he can track people by small clues even without them leaving a trace. And he has been living his whole life in this peaceful village, and weird things start to happen. He starts to find some plants that he hasn't even heard about, and on the way he meets Kaelin. Kaelin is a confessor, and we're not gonna discover who a confessor is until the middle of the book or so. She has special abilities, and the series of the books have a really strong storyline, and the characters have gone through so much development and story throughout. Richard has started out as just being a young man, maybe young adult, who didn't know what he was capable of, and throughout the books you can see how he's changing. He's getting more mature, he's learning responsibility, he's thinking about the consequences of his decisions, and he's really thinking through what he does and why he does it. So if you want to find out how that happens and what he has to actually face, I really recommend reading on. It's getting a lot more enticing as you go on, and there's a really huge love plot, and there's a lot of characters that aren't really like passing by. They're gonna stick through the books. You're gonna be immersed in this world, and you're gonna find out more and more details about this world and the characters in it, and magic and the world, and who Richard Cypher is. And actually there is a series, there are 2 seasons in them. They're called The Legend of the Seeker, and the cast is pretty amazing actually, but they changed the plot around a lot, and it's really not the same way as the books. It's much more simple, it's more child based. I mean, kids can follow that show without being too scarred for life. But the series of the books here doesn't really have much gore, so much gore as in Game of Thrones, but it's still pretty harsh, it's very lifelike, and there's magic of course, and there's dragons too, but it's nothing like Game of Thrones, and the dragons don't play any important role in here, well, some role. The story throughout the books has many morals that you'll be able to follow, and sometimes when you get to the next book, if you binge on them in the start, you can hear that some of the things are a bit repeated. You read through and there's a bit of a reminder what was in the past book, so you don't forget about it. So sometimes it's useful if you like to go slowly with the books and not rush, and you need a reminder. For me it was a bit annoying when I read them a couple of years ago. It was maybe like even 5 years ago. When I read the books, I found that it was a bit of an annoying thing because I just finished the first book and I don't need that much of a reminder of who Richard is, what he's doing in the second book. And anyway, you're gonna find all of this out, and I really recommend it. I can't get enough of this book. So let's get on with it and discuss The Severed Souls. Let's talk about The Severed Souls. So The Severed Souls, I just finished reading it last week, and I was really shocked with some of the events that went through the book. The whole 3 Richard Kaelin book cycle is a really exciting book series, and it's gonna end in November 2015, so it's really soon. It's not a long wait anymore, so it's a nice chance to actually get going with the books. And what I really liked about the book is that The Severed Souls really felt like a sort of a comeback to an interesting story, to a more action-packed events, but as you can see, the book appears pretty huge, and in fact it's not that big. It just has a lot of big text, so you can get through it really fairly quickly. So what we were getting in the books, in the earlier books, in the Sword of Truth series, in the last books, Terry was definitely influenced a lot by Ayn Rand, who is a great author, and she wrote Atlas Shrugged, a book that has left an immense imprint on me, actually, and I read it earlier in 2014, and I'm still thinking if I'm gonna make a review of that book or not, but it's a classic. I really love how Terry was able to entwine the ideas behind the value of the human life and behind all of this Ayn Rand philosophy into a fantasy-packed story. So I think that the novels with Richard and Kaelin don't have too much of that context going on, because we learned all these messages in the previous books already. So I don't think anybody is going to be starting with these series without reading Sword of Truth first, because the characters don't make much sense if you don't know them from scratch. This is a spoiler territory for those who didn't read the books yet, so I suggest that you first catch up on the Sword of Truth cycle and then get on with the next books, because these are spoiler alert. What most shocked me throughout the book is that it's really action-packed. The battles were like 1/3 of the whole book, and it really felt like a comeback to what Terry Goodkind used to write, like the last books of the cycle, because the previous 2 books have been too slow for me. For me, it has felt like you can unite all these 3 books into one smaller book with a smaller font, and it would be really useful for me. And I really was sad when in the previous book, in the Third Kingdom, when Benjamin died, and this time we have to deal with Zed dying. And it's a sudden death, it's such a sudden death that I couldn't really believe it. I was shocked, and I thought it wasn't real. I thought it was maybe like a wizard's net, or the thing that he did with Kaelin and Aidendrill in the Sword of Truth series. And apparently we have to deal with it, we have to believe that this actually happens. So I'm still dealing with that, I'm processing that. The ending of the book was really shocking to me, because events have unfolded so quickly, and this is something that we have to deal with in Terry Goodkind's books, because the finales always come too quickly, and it seems like some events are unfolding so quickly you can't really do anything about it, which you can't, all you can do is read on. And what shocked me was the transformation with Samantha, who really turned out to be uncontrollable, and she was enraged because of her treacherous mother's death, and she actually stabbed Kaelin, killing her instantaneously, and we had to read through the whole miserable process of Richard bringing her back from the underworld. Actually it's between the worlds, but Richard has died in the process. So what we have to deal with in the next book, I can't really fathom. I was so frustrated and sad for 2 days after that I only got around to making this video now on the weekend. So just remember that these books are totally unpredictable, you never know what's gonna happen. And of course I really hope that they bring Richard back, that Terry has mercy on us and he gives them a happy ending. And the reason that I suspect this is going to actually happen, although on Facebook he said that we shouldn't really expect it, is the reason that the era of Richard and Kaelin is referred to as the Golden Era. And actually the rule of Richard and Kaelin was proclaimed such a golden age, was so full of great events and so full of bliss, that I suppose that in the end they actually made it out alive, but you never know. The enemy of these series is Emperor Sulahan and Hanisark, and I don't know how we're gonna handle that. I really liked J-Gang in the last books of the Sword of Truth series. He was a really awesome villain. He was really thought through, his character was really well developed. I want to have a bit more of that in our new villains, to develop Khani's arc more and to develop the Emperor Sulahan. So basically this is my opinion on the Severed Souls. I can't wait to see what's coming next. I'm crazy to know what's gonna happen. So basically, you guys, I really advise you to go through and watch the series if you feel like it, but the books are indescribable. They're the best. They really are the best. And I really only have the 3 of those in Russian in print because I didn't really like the cover art that much, but maybe I'll be purchasing more of them because I really want to have them. So maybe I'll be looking for some kind of fancy edition. So thank you very much for tuning in and watching this review of the cycle with me till the end, hopefully. And I can't wait to hear about your favorite book from the Sword of Truth cycle and your opinion on the Richard and Kaelin novels that are going out right now, and the Severed Souls, for an instance. What have you thought about the books? Please let me know down in the comments below, and don't forget the subscribe button is somewhere down here. And give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and I'm gonna be doing more such videos on this channel, and hopefully I'm gonna get into this weekly mode really soon, and I'm going to get my videos to go out weekly on Mondays. So stay tuned and thank you for watching. Bye bye!